Hello everybody, Chris here, and in this video I want to give you guys a comparison between a few different screenshot applications that you can use on Windows 10. So we're going to be taking a look at Snip and Sketch, Greenshot, and then Snipping Tool, which is basically the original version of Snip and Sketch. So one of the interesting things about the Snipping Tool is the ability to do a freeform capture. So if we go to Mode in the Snipping Tool menu, we can see Freeform Rectangular Window and Full Screen Snip. All three of these applications have Rectangular Window and Full Screen, which is usually what you want. Rectangular Snip to grab a region of the screen that you define by dragging a box around the area you want to capture. Window Snip, which captures the bounds of a window, such as this sticky note over here. And then Full Screen, which captures everything on one of your monitors. So the Freeform Snip is a little bit different. The Freeform Snip allows you to basically draw a path, and everything that falls within that path is going to be captured. But by the nature of drawing with this tool, you can basically draw any shape you want, hence the freeform aspect. So if you want to capture a very strange shape on your screen and have that converted into a PNG, then you can do that with the freeform snip. I could see the freehand snip being useful when you want to avoid a specific region of your screen and then just draw around it using the freehand tool. So let's do a quick window snip here. I'll just grab the sticky note. So with that, we get a perfect copy of the bounds on our sticky note over here. And now we can start talking about some of the limitations of the snipping tool. So first off, when it comes to sending your screen capture to other applications, you only have Edit with Paint 3D up here, which personally is a program I don't use at all. And over here to the left, you have Send Snip. So you can send it to someone in an email embedded in the main message, or you can have it sent as an attachment file to a new email. And your third option to move it to another program is simply to copy it to the clipboard. So when you click copy here, it's going to be in the computer's clipboard memory. So if you open up another application, for instance GIMP, then you can Control-V, paste it in, and then you'd be able to edit it further. Obviously GIMP has a lot more tools for photo editing than something like the snipping tool. Besides that, you can of course save it to a file, but the limitation I'm really trying to draw it here is that there's not a lot of direct sharing functionality inside of the snipping tool. So you would usually need to work around that by either copying your snip to the clipboard or saving it to a file and then using that file on another program. The last point about the snipping tool I want to talk about before we move on to the other apps is that the color selection and really the tool selection in general is pretty limited inside of the snipping tool. So I can go ahead, use the pen tool up here and draw onto our note. That's all well and good. You can also click on the drop down and select between one of three default colors up here. So if you want a red pen, that's available. And you also have black as well. You can also customize a pen or go down to custom pen and then customize so that you don't change the other defaults to change the settings on the pen. But you can see here that you can only select from, I think this is about 16 colors or so, as your pen color choice. You also only have 3 settings for the thickness, fine, medium, and thick. So we can go ahead and hit OK on that and you can draw onto the note. So obviously you can get by with 16 colors and 3 choices for line thickness, but that's one of the ways that Snipping Tool is more limited. Also, it lacks other tools. You only have the pen and the highlighter over here. Aside from that, you don't have anything like a pencil tool or a ruler for doing straight lines. So for those reasons, Snipping Tool is kind of dated, and I would recommend using either Greenshot or Snip and Sketch as well. So now let's go move on to Greenshot. So when you have Greenshot open, and you usually would when you have it installed on your computer, because it launches Greenshot on startup by default. You can still turn that off and on if you want in the Task Manager. So here you can see on the Startup tab of Task Manager, I do have it currently disabled. So it's not starting with Windows, despite whatever this setting here says. So when you use Greenshot as your main tool, it's pretty handy, because anytime you want to take a good screen capture, you just simply need to hit the Print Screen button on your keyboard. So I hit Print Screen, and then we get the ability to draw a rectangular box. Note one of the advantages here that Snipping Tool doesn't have is that there's a little magnifying glass. So if you're trying to get kind of a more pixel perfect capture, like if I go over here to the bounds of this box, by having that little magnification area, you can see more precisely which pixel you're starting to grab, and then you can go down here. And then using the rectangular selection, you can get pretty close to a perfect window capture. Of course, there's also still the window capture mode as well. So one of the things I do like about Greenshot is that it has a built-in plugin which is active by default, to upload to Imgur. So what happens when you press this button is that the screen capture you just took gets uploaded to Imgur, which is an image hosting site on the internet. It gets uploaded in anonymous mode, and then you have a hyperlink URL to share that image, that screen capture you just took, with anywhere you need it on the internet. So that's pretty handy. It saves a couple steps, so you don't need to go and manually upload it to another site, because it's already there just by clicking on the button. Okay, so if I right click on Greenshot, we can see the other options for screen captures. So you have capture last region, which uses the same bounds and area for the screen capture you just took. So if you do capture region and you go over here and you do this, and you save that file somewhere, and then you go ahead and save that file somewhere. Then the next time you go into the Greenshot notification area and you do capture last region or press shift print screen on the keyboard, then the next time you go into the Greenshot drop down menu and you do capture last region, it's going to be grabbing those same pixels that you grabbed before. So you can still capture window and full screen like the other applications, but you don't have the freeform selection that you have in Snipping Tool and Snip and Sketch. So let's talk a little bit about the image editor for Greenshot. So when you take a screenshot in Greenshot, you have the drop-down menu. You can choose open an image editor if you want to spend a little bit of time editing it. So here's the Greenshot image editor. There's a few nice things about it, particularly its special effects. So with the O key, or over here on the left, you can obfuscate part of your screen. So if you need to blur something out, like a person's face, this is a great tool for it. So you just simply drag a box over the region you want to blur out. And that'll be about the quickest selective area blur effect you'll ever get. There's also some other effects. So for instance, Greyscale here, if you want to turn everything black and white, possibly for printing purposes, then you can click on that and it'll switch the entire image to a black and white grayscale. And you can also crop out your image to cut away the parts that you don't want in the final image file. So when you click crop, you just select a box region, just as if you had been doing a region capture. And then whatever is inside of that box is going to remain in the final cropped image, and everything else is going to get cropped away. So if I drag this box here, I can hit enter on the keyboard to commit it. And now we've shrunken our image, cropped away the extra stuff we didn't need. And now we can finish editing this little bit or save it to an image file. There's also a few additional tools that you'll find in the Greenshot image editor. For instance, you can draw a rectangle, a circle. You can use draw arrow to point arrows at certain regions on your screen. That's pretty helpful for note taking. Of course, you can create a text box and type text where you need it. And one of the fun things, add counter. So if you want to do like a 1-step, 2-step, 3-step explanation for something inside of your little screen capture, then you can do counter 1 and then you keep clicking around the screen. And that could be a nice way to notify people the order on which to do things if, say, you were making a tutorial. So now for the downsides of the Greenshot image editor. In my opinion, the icons are way too tiny, and I haven't seen a way to actually be able to increase their size here. So honestly, it may be a little hard to look at. And in addition to that, the UI itself looks pretty dated, kind of ugly. I'm not really a fan of gray backgrounds like that anymore. That's why when I use a program like GIMP, I usually go with a dark theme, and I just think that looks a lot better. But overall, Greenshot is pretty solid. Until just a couple days ago, I was using that all the time. So let's switch over to Snip and Sketch now. So Snip and Sketch is a direct replacement for the Snipping Tool. It can basically do everything that the Snipping Tool can do, except better. So just like before with the Snipping Tool, one of the advantages is the Freeform Capture. So if we go take a new snip up here, we'll get the ability to select our snip, and then we can see the freeform snip still exists here. So in the same way, we just draw a region around our screen, and it actually has this really nice visual preview that makes it very clear exactly what kind of shape you're getting. And when we opened up Snip and Sketch there, you may have seen that you can actually use Snip and Sketch without directly having it open as an application on your computer. So as long as you have it installed, all you need to do to take a snip is Windows key, Shift, and then S at the same time. And you're going to get the drop down at the top of the screen for taking a snip. So let's go ahead and Windows snip, and we'll grab our region over here. For the sticky note, it gets saved to the clipboard. All we need to do to edit it is to left click on it. But of course, the nature of it being in the clipboard, if we wanted, we could also just paste it into another application like GIMP. So let's just start a new file, Control V, paste it in. So if you prefer to edit it in another program, GIMP, Photoshop, that kind of thing, you can do that already. So just like the other applications, you have a pen selection tool here, 30 colors to choose from as opposed to the 16 and Snipping Tool. And I think I would say the color palette is a little bit nicer here as well. So let's go ahead and grab one, and you can just draw around. And perhaps more important, rather than having 3 sizes for the pen, you actually can slide along the scale going from size 1 to 24. So effectively you have 24 different sizes you can use for your pen thickness. So that's handy. But let's talk about what really makes Snip and Sketch stand out from the other tools. And in my opinion, that is the ruler and the protractor. So we can click up here to grab the ruler tool. And what the ruler is going to serve as is a straight edge which you can keep your lines snapped to so that you get a perfectly straight line. Of course, you can also use it for measuring distances in a sense if you just look along the notches of the ruler so you can control your line size. But as long as you use the pen or pencil tool and you're going along the edge here, you're going to get a perfectly straight line, which is really handy. It's going to make your note taking look a lot smoother. Also, if you scroll on middle mouse wheel for the ruler, you can rotate it so you can draw lines at an angle if you prefer. So just like that, perfect 20-degree straight line going across our document. So the protractor is pretty similar. It's used for drawing angles or perfect circles. So we can scroll on the protractor to control its size. And then when we draw with the pen tool and we go around the protractor circle, we'll get an angle measurement. So if you want to draw only a specific number of degrees, like 45 degrees here, then we can let go there. And then we have drawn 45 degrees. And of course the snapping is really good as well. So if I left click and I go around in a circle, then we're going to get that perfect 360 degrees. The pen isn't going to go wavy all over the place or making it look bad. We're just going to get a perfect circle, which obviously is something pretty hard to draw freehand normally. So just like in Greenshot, there's also cropping tools. So if I click on image crop here, we can shrink the bounds of what should show in the final screen cap. I would say personally, I prefer the visual indicators in Snip and Sketch for the crop tool and also the screen capture tools. I think the visual indicators in Snip and Sketch do give a little bit more clarity on exactly what's going on. So for those reasons, it's really easy to use in general. As a more minor thing, commenting on the color selections again, I do think that the color palettes you have in Snip and Sketch are pretty nice in general. It does lack the ability to select from any HTML color using color wheels, but I think that with the color palette that is available for these tools, most people aren't really going to miss that anyway. That I think it's not going to be too big of a deal. So one of the things that keeps Snip and Sketch a bit more modern is that they have a toggle here for touch writing. So if you happen to be using a tablet, possibly with a stylus pen, or any screen that allows you to use your fingers directly on the screen, then you can toggle touch writing on and off. So in Snip and Sketch, there are touch gestures available for doing the same kinds of things that you would do with the mouse and keyboard. Like for instance, rotating the ruler so that you can have it draw straight lines at an angle. So another big improvement over Snipping Tool is the ability to share with other applications that aren't Print 3D directly from within Snip and Sketch. So in the top right hand corner, you can see a share button. So if you have Windows contacts on your computer, if you have connected a Bluetooth device which is compatible, or if you have applications that can handle images that are installed from the Windows App Store, then you can use the share functionality in Snip and Sketch to directly send your images to those programs. However, if you do like having that built-in upload to Imgur functionality, that is something that Greenshot has over Snip and Sketch. You'd have to go find another tool if you want to get your files uploaded to the internet, basically as soon as you take your screen captures. Of course, like the other applications, you still have the default functionality of being able to copy it to the clipboard. So nothing too fancy there, but of course, copying the file to the clipboard so you can paste it into another program or saving it onto your computer and then opening it or uploading it to the internet is going to be standard functionality that you're going to use regardless of which program you happen to be working on. So if in GIMP I go into a new document, I can Control V the clipboard into here. One of the differences though is that it's still being pasted with the transparency layer. So if I move this around, you'll notice that you'll notice that the shape that gets copied. So minor difference with Snip and Sketch here. You are allowed to draw notes onto your screen capture that happen to go outside the bounds of the original screen capture. So when you copy it into another program, you might see something like this where you don't actually copy a perfect square, but those lines that went outside of your original screen capture show up as their own individual pieces. So the in-between area, that's actually transparent. So if you had another background here, that would still show. Okay, so all that brings us to the conclusion for this video. In a nutshell, Snipping Tool, so that brings us to the conclusion for this video. So first off, Snipping Tool is good. It's fully functional and it defaults to Windows 10. So if you have it installed and you don't want to install anything else, that's perfectly fine. You can still use it. In my opinion, Greenshot is a step above the original Snipping Tool. It has extra functionality. Its editor is better. Being able to upload your image to the internet immediately from within the app so that you can copy a URL anywhere you need to share that image is pretty cool. But especially when it comes to the image editor, it looks pretty dated, and if I was still using Greenshot, I would probably copy those images directly into GIMP so that I could add it there instead. And then we have Snip and Sketch, which is the application I'd actually recommend after trying all three of them out. Having a ruler and a protractor tool inside of the Snip and Sketch editor is really handy. If you're not able to draw straight lines well, it's really easy to do that using ruler and protractor. And the editor UI is a lot more modern, nice to look at, easy to understand, it's uncluttered. In general, I would think it's more usable for most people. If a program like Photoshop or GIMP is a little overwhelming, then drawing notes in Snip and Sketch is pretty easy to understand since you only have a handful of tools up here at the top. And then the fact that they have support for touch control gestures, I'm sure that's really helpful if you happen to be working on a Windows 10 tablet or a similar device. Though I have not personally tried the touch controls out myself. So in conclusion, I think that if you're comparing these three applications, the one you should go with is going to be Snip and Sketch. So if you want to install Snip and Sketch, you can pick it up on the Windows Store, or if you go open the Snipping Tool app in Windows 10, you can just click Try Snip and Sketch, and I believe that did open it directly in the Windows Store for installation. Either that or just go to the Start menu, type in Store for Windows Store, and search Snip and Sketch in there, and you should be able to find it. So if you were looking for a screenshot application, I hope this video helped to give you an idea of some of the advantages and disadvantages of those three applications, Snipping Tool, Greenshot, and Snip and Sketch. That's going to be it for this video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in my future video content.